In a world where destiny is written by bloodlines and social status, two souls existed in completely different universes. Akihiko Shimizu, heir to the eyes the color of winter storms, born with a platinum spoon, raised in a world where every breath was calculated, every smile measured, every relationship transactional. His life was a chessboard, and he was the king everyone wanted to capture. But kings are lonely pieces, aren't they? Every morning, Akihiko would wake in his penthouse suite overlooking Tokyo. 300 square meters of cold, minimalist perfection. Marble floors that echoed his footsteps. Floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased a city he owned but never truly touched. His father had already arranged his future: Harvard MBA, then CEO position, then marriage to Sakura Tanaka, daughter of the Tanaka Hotel empire. Love? That word didn't exist in his vocabulary. It was replaced with merger, alliance, strategic partnership. At 20, Akihiko had never held someone's hand because he wanted to, never smiled because joy bubbled up from his chest, never stayed awake at night thinking about another person's laugh. He was perfect, untouchable, empty. And then there was Haruto Yoshida, 22 years old, with messy dark hair that never stayed in place no matter how many times he tried, warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and hands that were always slightly stained with paint or clay or whatever creative medium had captured his attention that day. Where Akihiko's world was marble and glass, Haruto's was second-hand wood and peeling wallpaper. His apartment in the Nakano district was barely 30 square meters. The shower leaked. The heater only worked on Tuesdays and Thursdays, apparently. His futon had a permanent indent from his body. But it was his. Haruto worked 3 part-time jobs: morning shift at a convenience store, afternoon shifts at an art supply shop, and evening gigs as a street portrait artist in Shibuya. Between all of this, he was putting himself through art school, chasing a dream that everyone said was impractical. Art doesn't pay bills, his aunt had said when he moved to Tokyo. Then I'll paint during the day and pay bills at night, he'd replied. Stubborn, optimistic to a fault, annoyingly cheerful despite everything. Where Akihiko was taught to build walls, Haruto built bridges. Where Akihiko learned to suspect everyone's motives, Haruto saw the best in people until proven catastrophically wrong. They lived in the same city, breathed the same air, walked the same streets, but they might as well have existed in different dimensions. Akihiko's world of charity galas and board meetings. Haruto's world of ramen shops and art exhibitions in tiny galleries nobody visited. The universe, however, has a sense of humor, and sometimes it likes to collide worlds that were never meant to touch. It started on a Thursday. Akihiko remembered because Thursdays were his least favorite day. The day he met with his father to discuss his progress toward becoming a suitable heir. These meetings always left him feeling like a project being evaluated, not a son being loved. This particular Thursday, the meeting had been worse than usual. The Tanaka family expects an engagement announcement by your 21st birthday, his father had said, not looking up from his tablet. I trust this won't be a problem? Not a question. Never a question. No, father, Akihiko had replied, his voice as hollow as he felt. He'd left the office early. A small rebellion that would probably result in a strongly worded email from his father's assistant. He didn't care. He just needed air. Real air, not the recycled, temperature-controlled atmosphere of the Shimizu building. His driver offered to take him home. I'll walk, Akihiko said. The driver's expression suggested he'd just announced he was joining the circus, but he didn't argue. You didn't argue with a Shimizu. And Haruto? Haruto was having what he called a spectacularly terrible, fantastic day. Spectacular because he'd finally finished his submission piece for the Emerging Artists exhibition. A mixed media piece he'd been working on for 4 months, pouring every yen he could spare into materials, every free minute into creation. Terrible because he'd been fired from the convenience store job for talking back to a customer who'd been harassing a young female coworker. Fantastic because he didn't regret it one bit. Your problem, Yoshida, his former manager had said, is that you think being right matters more than being employed. Maybe it does, Haruto had replied, already untying his apron. So there he was, walking through Shinjuku as evening fell, carrying his portfolio, simultaneously proud and panicking because he'd just lost a third of his income and rent was due in 2 weeks. It's fine, he muttered to himself. It's totally fine. I'll pick up extra portrait sessions. Maybe sell some pieces online. It's absolutely, completely, definitely fine. It was not fine. He was so lost in his spiraling thoughts that he didn't notice the crowd gathering ahead. Didn't notice the commotion. Didn't notice the crash. A delivery scooter, swerving to avoid a car. The driver losing control. Headed straight for a child who'd wandered from her mother. Haruto didn't think. He just moved, dropped his portfolio, lunged forward, grabbed the child and rolled, his body taking the impact as the scooter clipped his shoulder and crashed into a storefront. Pain, sharp and immediate, but the child was crying in his arms, scared but unharmed. It's okay, he heard himself saying through the pain. You're okay. You're safe. The mother was screaming, crying, thanking him. The crowd was gathering. Someone was calling an ambulance. And Akihiko, who'd been walking past, anonymous in the crowd for the first time in his life, saw everything. Saw this stranger with messy dark hair throw himself in front of danger without hesitation. Saw him comfort the child even while bleeding. Saw him smile, actually smile, and tell the frantic mother it was nothing. Really, anyone would have done the same. But Akihiko knew that wasn't true. He wouldn't have. He'd been taught since childhood. Don't get involved. Don't make scenes. Protect the family name above all else. This stranger had just acted like heroism was as natural as breathing. I'm fine. Really? The stranger was saying, trying to stand up and immediately wincing. I just need to collect my things. His portfolio had scattered across the wet pavement. Paintings and sketches were soaking in puddles, for months of work bleeding into gutters. And again, Akihiko didn't think. He stepped forward and started gathering the artwork. Their hands touched over a watercolor painting of the Tokyo skyline. So different from how Akihiko saw it. Where Akihiko saw steel and commerce, this artist had painted light and life and possibility. Haruto looked up. Their eyes met, and something shifted. Something fundamental and terrifying and inevitable. Thank you, Haruto said. And his voice was warm despite the cold rain starting to fall. You're bleeding, Akihiko replied, and wondered why his heart was racing. Happens more often than you'd think, Haruto said with a small laugh that sounded like music. Occupational hazard of being catastrophically clumsy. He wasn't clumsy. He was brave. Akihiko had just watched him be the bravest person in a crowd of hundreds. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics insisted on checking Haruto. The mother wouldn't stop thanking him. The crowd began to disperse. Akihiko should have left. He stayed. Stayed while they bandaged Haruto's shoulder. Stayed while the police took statements. Stayed until the rain was falling in earnest and the street had emptied and it was just the two of them under the awning of a closed shop. I should go, Haruto said, looking at his ruined portfolio with an expression of devastating acceptance. Thank you again for helping with my work, even though it's pretty much destroyed. Do you have copies? Photos, yeah. But the originals. He shrugged with his good shoulder. That's art, I guess. Temporary. Fragile. Like people, Akihiko heard himself say. Haruto looked at him then, really looked, and smiled. Exactly like people. There was a moment, just a breath, where neither of them moved. Where the rain fell around them and the city hummed and something unnamed passed between them. I'm Haruto, he said finally. Haruto Yoshida. Akihiko, he replied, and didn't add his last name. For once, he wanted to just be Akihiko. Well, Akihiko, Haruto said, and the way he said the name made it sound like a new word. If you're ever in Shibuya on a weekend, I draw portraits near Hachiko statue. Come by. I owe you a drawing for helping tonight. You don't owe me anything. Then let me give you something anyway. And with that, Haruto walked away into the rain, favoring his injured shoulder, carrying his ruined portfolio, somehow still seeming to carry light with him. Akihiko stood there long after he'd disappeared. His phone buzzed. His driver asking for his location. His father's assistant.
Thanks for watching.
Forwarding
What do you think
tomorrow's
happened in the
schedule.
next episode?
His mother,
Please don't forget to subscribe and
reminding
turn
him
on
about
notifications for
Sunday
more
dinner with the
episodes and more
Tanakas.
enchanted stories.
The world pulling him back. But for the first time in his 20 years, Akihiko wondered, what if he didn't go back? What if, just once, he went to Shibuya instead? It was a dangerous thought, the first of many, because neither of them knew it yet. But that moment under the awning in the rain, that was the beginning of everything, the beginning of the end of who they'd been. They were never meant to fall in love. But then again, the best love stories are the ones that were never meant to happen at all.
Thanks for watching. What do you think happened in the next episode? Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more episodes and more enchanted stories.
He told himself he wouldn't go. Saturday morning, Akihiko woke up in his pristine penthouse and went through his usual routine: gym session with his personal trainer, breakfast prepared by his private chef, egg with omelette, no salt, black coffee, review of business reports. His father expected him to analyze, normal, controlled, safe. But his mind kept drifting to the warm brown eyes and smile that didn't want anything from him. Focus, he muttered to himself. He didn't focus. By noon, he had already made a decision, or rather, his feet made it for him, carrying him to Shibayu before his brain could mount a proper defense. Just to see if he is actually there, Ahiko told himself. Curiosity, that's all. Lies. Even he knew he was lying. Shibuya on a Saturday was chaos. Tourists and teenagers, street performers and shoppers, the iconic crossing flooding with people. With every time the light changed, Aiko had been there before, of course, but in cars, looking out at the crowd like watching fish in aquarium. Being in the crowd was different. Anonymous, almost free. He found Haruto near the Hachiko statues, exactly where he said, set up with a small easel, a sign that said portrait, 2,000 yen. All proceeds go to pay my rent and feeding, my catastrophic coffee addiction. Even his sign was honest. Haiko watched from a distance, half hidden behind a pillar. Haruto was drawing a young couple laughing as he sketched, making them laugh too. His hand moved with confident grace over the paper, creating the same ease other people breathed. He was wearing a faded denim jacket covered with